You're nearly always the one sitting in this seat doing the interview.
Yes.
Does it feel strange to actually be sitting down for half an hour interview with someone going to ask you questions?
It feels weird, but what's weirder is you wouldn't give me the questions beforehand. I just said, I don't want any scripts, right? No, don't ask me questions about scripts. I don't want to feel like talking about scripts. And then, so what are we going to talk about? He goes, oh, don't worry. So I have zero idea.
We had a good conversation last week, as we often do, but we don't always talk about real estate. Tom likes the town that I live in, so we have over the years had coffees and had walks and all sorts of conversations, but not always about real estate. But with our time here, what I thought would be very valuable for all of us here to understand from you some of your learnings and your wisdom, because that's pretty well the focus of today's whole agenda, of all of the interesting people that you've dealt with over the years. Why did you choose, Tom, to be a coach? Why not build a business, a big real estate business, or why not? Why was that the direction that you took in your career to be a coach?
So I was a real estate agent.
Yep.
And I was a business owner. I opened up an office when I was 21 and a half. And I was a good real estate agent. And I'd sell a lot of properties, 6 or 7 every month.
Where were you? Where was your market?
I started at Padstow, Chambersling, Padstow, and the office is still there. Very strong office. Still does 30 sales every month, that office, like your business. And then when I was selling real estate in my own office, it was in the inner west. And what happened is, when you're in a network, other offices start ringing you up, you know, how are you getting these listings? How are you getting these sales? So I continually got asked by people to go off and do sessions. And I had a bit of helper's high, you know. Chris, you know, when it makes you feel good that you say something and people write it down and then they ring you up and they say, man, that really worked. And then my business partner said, man, you're spending a lot of time away from the office doing these training sessions and you're making money out of training. And that was really where it is. I mean, like, Chris, I've got a model: effortless, lucrative, fun, ELF. And the opposite of that is, HAF model: hate, annoying, frustrating. And education and training sort of fitted into that model, and that's where it sort of went into.
So how long have you been doing that now?
25.
So you were how old? 20 in your middle 20s when you started doing that?
Late 20s.
Late 20s?
Yeah.
We've had this conversation before, but for the benefit of the audience, nurture or nature for you when it comes to salespeople and all the salespeople you've seen? Nurture or nature?
I think there's an element of genetics in life. So if you're 5'3", you probably won't be playing for the LA Lakers, even if you out-train the competition, okay? But you will improve. You'll improve. So maybe you won't play for the LA Lakers, but you'll play, I don't know, you probably won't even play for the Sydney Kings, actually.
Should we feel
so
sorry?
You'll do something else. You'll go become a commentator, or But I think the good news is, and there is research, and Martin Seligman studied it in a book called Learned Optimism, that we all have baselines. Chris, we have baselines. You might be born as a 4 out of 10, but if you've got a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, you can take that score up. The good news about real estate, IQ is not something that highly affects your results. What affects it, and that's great news if you're pretty stupid in this room at the moment.
Except our audience is the exception to the rule.
Correct. There's, I'm sure there's someone out there that's done pretty well in their HSC. Who was I talking about that got a really bad HSC mark? Yes. Oh, I'm just having a mental blank. David Highland. You know David Highland?
Yeah, I know David, yep.
He got 69 out of 500. Do you believe that?
He's a Shire boy, Tom.
Like, I reckon you pick up 50 points for walking in the room.
Yeah. His career choice was wise.
Yeah.
I think where he's moved.
So sorry, digressing, but I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of both.
When you've had this quarter of a century-ish training and coaching people, and I'm always interested in any sphere to ask coaches a question around, you must see examples of people who've been in the slow lane for all of their career and then something changes. From the inside, what are the things that change, particularly for people who've been in that slow lane for so long? What is it that changes and moves them across into the fast lane? Now, the fast lane might be happiness. It might be not necessarily money, but moves them. What is it in your experience?
Punch in the face. A punch, and I say that metaphorically. So, Chris, essentially what happens is you can have someone that's been living in a coma for 35, 40 years, right? And an event happens, it could be someone wakes up and realises their husband has been cheating. They pick up a mobile phone and they see, wow, this has been a lie. And they decide that they're not going to tolerate that. And then all of a sudden they're on their own. And it's really amazing what a broken heart, an empty wallet, or a hungry stomach does for people. So it's a punch in the face that you weren't expecting. It could be an illness where what happens is you realise and for me, the punch in the face was illness, where I thought, hang on a second, I've got a terrible diagnosis here in my mid-30s. I have to accept I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I don't want to have, tickets being sold at, high school to, pay for things. So that punch in the face said, man, I'm just going to have to work hard, create some sort of financial security, because if this diagnosis is going to go as what they're saying, I'm going to feel, it was just depressing to think that, my wife and my 2 kids would not have money. And so that was the case for me, and thankfully it hasn't happened. So I've decided I'll spend the money and not give it to my future son-in-laws.
Do coaches sometimes do metaphysically the punch in the face? And by that I mean, when you're coaching people, there must be times, I know as a leader of a business for a long time, when you've got a pretty good idea what you think someone needs to do to get out of the slow lane. What methods do you use when you're coaching someone to move them out of the slow lane, metaphysically? What do you do to them to prod them? What do you use?
Okay. So Chris, if the punch in the face doesn't come through circumstances, it doesn't have to be a coach, by the way, right? Because I think that you're a good person. You don't have to be a coach to actually awaken someone from the coma. It's someone that cares, that actually says to a person, hey, listen, I want to tell you things not better than what they are, not worse than what they are, but as they are. And here's the problem. Everything's not going to be okay. And sometimes it's this crucial conversation that gets someone from stuck to unstuck. I actually think out of everything I do, I think I'm good at that, because I know, and I said it to you a couple of weeks ago, it's not till I not needed money in my life that I became good at my job. Because when you're a coach, and this is the real suck in real estate, you got a bunch of people, and not just in real estate, that put themselves as an educator, trainer, coach. And what happens is their model is they need the person's money. So what they'll do is they'll keep telling the person what that person needs, what that person wants to hear, what not that person needs to hear, right? Because they don't want to upset them. But when you get to the stage where you actually feel like, hey, it's okay, I don't need them as a client, so now I can do my real work. And for me, Chris, it's all about trying to peel the onion and get down to the core issue. That's where the value is. And I've got to tell you, it's helped me. I mean, a lot of people don't know that my master's degree was in coaching psychology and behavioural science. And I haven't used it a lot, but I do use a lot of the theory behind cognitive behavioural therapy. And that is that what I'm constantly trying to do, there's a great saying. Often when someone's got a sore left knee, the problem's the right hip. I'm not looking at the knee. People are saying to me, oh, mate, I've got to work on my prospecting scripts. I've got to work on my prospecting scripts, right? And I'm thinking to myself, if you've been in real estate for 10 years, you should have worked out what to say and who to say it. So there's got to be more to it. So it's this process of digging deep. And I use a methodology called, I'm not going to spend time talking about it now, but I use a methodology called GROW. It's an evidence-based thing. And I just do it. Like agents who have listing presentations, I've got this methodology. When I sit down with someone, I know that I'm going through this process. So Chris, the punch in the face, and I'm digressing around the circles with a question, but getting back to the core issue. The punch in the face is this, where you turn around and you say to someone, listen, I can't help it. We've been in this room for 45 minutes. We've been talking about prospecting scripts. You came in sniffing your nose like, there's some sinus issue. And I just want to ask you, how's life? And they'll say, oh, yeah, pretty good. Like out of 10, 10 being the best, 0 the worst, how's life? Oh, mate, I like scaling, because scaling makes the implicit explicit. How's life? 6 out of 10. And mate, can I ask you, do you drink a bit? Oh, not really. All right. Do you take any Coke? And there's this blank stare there. And once we get to the truth, we can move forward. I'm using an extreme example, but it is a real example.
I've got a young friend of mine who's an emergency doctor, and he tells me that in accident emergency, when someone walks into the hospital, he can tell whether they're crook as they walk across the room without them opening their mouth, without them actually having to speak and tell him what's going on. And another friend of mine who's a doctor tells me the same thing. When you're working with people over time, as you do, and as intensely, can you tell when you first start the journey of coaching people, can you tell in your gut that whether that person's going to move the needle?
I can. I have to stop myself because I can get it wrong, and I've learnt. So prejudging has proven to be helpful a lot of the time, but not all the time. So I've got to actually understand that I must sit there with an open mind. I also have to understand that so Chris, there's 2 of us in a conversation. Picture a beach ball. One's got a red panel, one's got a green panel. I understand at any one time that the way that they're seeing the world is different to the way that I'm seeing the world. So I've got to put myself thinking, we might be looking at the same ball, but different panels. But fundamentally, Chris, it comes down to this. Real estate is, contrary to what a lot of people believe, it's not easy. In fact, reality is, people that are sitting in this room, most people are writing well under 500 in GCI. And I would actually say the subset of 0 to 300 is a more accurate description of most people. So what I'm constantly looking for is the person prepared to suffer more than the competitors? That's what I'm looking at. Your ability to endure suffering. Because if you can endure suffering for a period of around 2 to 3 years, you can build a tribe that's got your vibe. And then what you'll notice is you move from being a runway agent on the tarmac and you start getting up in the sky. And when you're up in the sky, Chris, life is easier because contrary to what a lot of people think, the big writers in real estate, there's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of bullshit.
No.
Man, I did a rant 2 weeks ago, and you called me up on the Sunday, and you said those 9 things that you said were accurate, except you missed number 10, and that is, number 10 was that most real estate agents, even though they look pretty flashy on the outside, the majority have got a financial independent life that is actually not that strong, right? So Chris, what I'm looking at is the ability of the person. Will this person actually rock up each day for the next 2 to 3 years, having no's, being let down, watching the world fall apart in front of their eyes, but they press the repeat button? That's what I'm looking for. And generally speaking, if the consequences of that person not doing that is still okay, if mummy and daddy, if they're a trust kid, or if they've got resources, which means, you know what, it's okay, that's a worry, because you probably won't pay the price.
Tell us about, and we don't need to know who the person is, but I'm always interested in the exceptions. And I know, as someone who's employed and coached and trained salespeople over many decades myself, you get these people sometimes who work for you who don't tick many or most of the boxes. They mightn't look the part, but there's something they don't give up. They're there and they go through this process and survive, and then they flourish. What are some of the examples of that you've seen where people have surprised you over the years?
Okay. So are you asking me what are the qualities that they have?
And I'm asking the qualities, and I guess while you're in the game, there's hope. And I've always figured that anyone that hangs around, and we see them, journeymen and journeywomen, people who they're writing the figures and they're good human beings, but it doesn't work for them, or they don't find their voice or their way. So what are the characteristics? What changes?
Okay, so number one, they've got they don't feel the world owes them anything. So and if you really think about it, it doesn't, because the world was here first. So they understand the equation, right? Number one, they don't feel anyone knows them anything. Number two, that they don't personalize rejection, right? They don't sit there and ruminate. Ruminating, Chris, is, it's not talked a lot, but ruminating is the person that sits there and they're trying to get over why they lost this listing. They went to it and they ruminate over for days. Winners don't do that. Winners think about the 10 they never got called into, right? So they don't ruminate. The third thing, Chris, is that I would say they've got the ability to bring the future forward, which is, I call, the ability to practice delayed gratification, right? So they're able to actually say, you know what, I'm gonna go onto to my CRM system. I'm gonna sit there on agent, but we'll give them a promotion because they are sponsoring the event, and I've also got a relationship with them, best system. Anyway. Let's go through the calls, 30 calls, 30 calls, 30 calls, 30 calls. The ability to know that you're going to be having these conversations, nothing's going to come out of them now. But in 2023, something's going to come out of it, because they're going to say, you know what? That Chris Hanley rang us every time something sold in this area. Have you got the ability to do something now and not get rewarded for it now? That's a quality I see in these people. And the other quality that I see is they're not attached to the outcome. They seem to be married to the process more than the outcome. And I think Taney spoke about it, and everyone has really spoken. Madeline spoke about it. You see, when you're sitting there in front of a client and you're married to the outcome, what you'll do is you'll say, you know what? The outcome here is I'll sell it in a day, I'll pick up my fee and move on. Married to the process is, hang on a second, this property might be suited to go full on. I'm going to sit here and explain to the owner why. So you'll always do the thing that's right for them, not the thing that's right for you.
Two things you've touched on there that I'm interested in asking about. I've had rumination issues, been a master ruminator myself over the years. So, and I remember reading a piece a bunch of years ago about tennis players. We've got Ben Crow here this afternoon to speak, which we're all excited to see. And Ash Barty, for example, is someone that he trains and coaches. But I remember reading this piece where they did research into the greatest tennis players. And the ones who were the best were the ones that didn't ruminate between points. They played a bad point, deleted it straight out of their mind and moved on. So the first question I want to ask, is there a strategy if you're a ruminator? If you spend all your time in your head worrying about, as you said before, things you didn't get, things you didn't... Is there a strategy for that as a coach?
Strategy number one is understand it's not going to happen with one piece of advice, right? Anyone that says, do this, you're set, right? Everything is hard before it's easy. So set yourself up for understanding this is a process. You probably get it done in a few months, right? You start doing the inner work, you probably get it done in a couple of months, right? For me, here is what it is. Number two, participate in the solution, not the problem. Participate in the solution, not the problem. Number three, get yourself a big piece of white cardboard, cut it up into 4 bits and write the words next. Have that plastered all around your office. What you've got to do is start reminding yourself that the person that you've got an issue with, if it's a prospecting call, if it's there, they're not the only person on the planet, right? There is how many people in Australia?
25 million, 26 I think now.
25 million, you only need 100 listings a year to have a good life, right? So there's a lot of, right? So you got to think there's an abundance, right? There's an abundance, right?
Plenty, yeah.
And then the other thing I would say is it's really interesting how things that have nothing to do with sorting out a problem, external things, can actually help you. For instance, listening to Hannon, I've got to say to you, you'll probably ruminate less and go over problems less if you exercise, if you eat well, if you have a decent night's sleep, if you're consuming positive information from books or from videos, and if you decide that you're just going to sack the 5 biggest dickheads in your life, you will probably find that your life will be better. And then you'll have this ripple effect, you know? So, yeah.
When we ask most people what they need to do to affect real change, now whether that is in their health or whether it's in the number of prospecting calls and so on, I find that over time they pretty well get the right answer all the time. So that the challenge isn't the answer to the question. The challenge usually is why aren't they doing whatever they need to do? In your coaching experience of a quarter of a century, what stops people doing what they know they could do to move forward in whatever part of their life? What stops them?
So, Chris, I'm not going to turn around and say, hey, everyone, take your pen down. This is the 4-point bullet formula that solves that problem, right? Because it's not as straightforward as that. If it was, everyone would be ripped and be multimillionaires, but that's not the case, right? So you've got to pick a specific topic. So let's pick up prospecting.
Yes.
So you turn around and say, what? Because we know that is a critical part of real estate.
Yes.
You would agree with that, Chris?
Yes, I do, Tom.
Okay.
I do.
So you turn around and you say, why is it that people suck? So here are some of the
Would you like to change seats for a minute? Just over here.
I prefer that, to be honest. I prefer that. So why is it? So number one, it's maybe they don't know what to say. Maybe, if they're newer. Number two, they don't know who to call. Number three, they've got this self-limiting belief, thinking that when you prospect, you actually get a listing. No, you don't. When you prospect, you get a connection and a relationship that one day becomes a listing. So sometimes it's a self-limiting belief about what the thing is. The next one is another self-limiting belief. Oh, Tommy, I'm so busy at the moment. I've got 3 on the run. Another one is, They're bullshitting to themselves about their digital strategy. Oh, Tommy, look at my social media. I got 3,000 people that viewed my story, and you're thinking to yourself, hello, having some guy in Puerto Rico that owns a cafe ain't going to be listing their home with you in Belmore, right? So often self-limiting beliefs. Then the other thing, Chris, is this. They just need to get into the routine pattern. So if you can do that, and you're good, your office is very good at giving an environment to people to say, this is what we do. So the environment is actually very, very important. In fact, Chris, they have found people that give up heroin, and heroin's not an easy drug to give up. They find that people that give up heroin, when you change their environment, if you take a heroin addict out of a home with other heroin addicts and put them in a normal home where there's no heroin addicts, and people go to work and people exercise and people just have a normal life, that they begin to actually fit into that environment. So the environment is also a factor. So the truth is, your environment does dictate your behavior. So Chris, there's these complex reasons that you've got to sit there and analyze and say, okay, how much is it a skill issue? How much is it a will issue? How much is it an external factor? And I think most people underestimate how useful their principles can be for them in their business.
We got a lot of principles in the room, so it leads me to another question. You get a unique view, and have done over the years, into the workplace environments of real estate people. You visit a lot of offices, you've trained a lot of teams. In terms of our work environment that facilitates and encourages productivity, but also happiness, the team spirit, good culture, what are your learnings over the years from let's call it the perfect workplace environment for real estate businesses? What should they look like? How should they operate?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is you do want to tap into a business that's got resources, be it technology, that you can tap in and you become dependent on that. That helps a person. The second thing is work out, is your boss trying to be popular, or is your boss trying to be practical, right? And you don't want to be working for a boss whose audio doesn't match their video, right? Because if you're a principal, you better accept it. You're being auditioned every minute of the day. You walk in, everyone's looking at you, everyone's sussing out. And as a principal, you know, every principal in this room needs to understand you get what you tolerate. You get what you tolerate. And what happens is this, as a principal, you're the chief energy officer of the business. And that basically means you've got this massive responsibility. You're the custodian of these people's lives. So for me, when you've got a principal whose audio matches their video, who has got a standard that says we don't tolerate this, and we catch people doing things wrong quickly, and we catch people doing things right quickly. And in addition to that, as a business, what we're going to do is, you're currently writing 300 GCI. We're going to work with you. We're not going to pay you a 90% split, but we're going to work with you to actually get you from 300 to 1 million, because we're going to show you how to leverage your activities with team members. We're going to sit there and create structures. We're going to sit here and we're going to get you to plug in and allow you to focus only on 4 things: list, sell, negotiate, prospect. And because you're going to do that and you're going to be focused on that, you're going to end up tripling your business. That's the kind of office you've got to be looking at.
After all these years, Tom, and before we run out of time, what do you still like about your job? After all these years, what still gets you out of bed and brings you to work? I don't think I've ever seen you without words.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I had a shit night's sleep last night, you know.
Is that why you're trying to send me to bed early?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let me just think. Okay, listen, I still got a spring. I'm still addicted to the deal. So I wake up, at the moment I'm doing 13, 14 auctions every Saturday, right? I still go to listing presentations with some of my clients. I'm addicted to the deal. Success is addictive, right? I've got to tell you, success is addictive. So I'm addicted to the deal. The second thing is, I've got to tell you, Chris, I have tried not working, right? I've tried walking
overrated?
walking around Westfield Shopping Centre from 9 to 12 waiting to have lunch and then thinking, what am I going to do for the next 4 hours of my day? It's not easy, right? I've tried it. So I've got to say to you, what I love the ability to wake up and do stuff that I can feel like I'm in flow. It's my cause, it's my purpose. And what is that? That is me solving problems for people that I like and care about. If I don't like and care about them, they're not fitting into the ELF model. So if it's effortless, lucrative and fun, so what does that look like? Me having some one-on-ones, me doing some work for my companies that I represent, me doing auctions, me speaking at conferences. But the biggest thing I love the most is the ability for me to produce content that is distributed on scale through the real estate gym, right? I'm obsessed with that because I know that what happens is if I speak to one-on-one with someone and I give them this information, I help one person, but I can actually help 5,000, 10,000 people at the one time. So that makes a difference to me. I still have helpers high, and I've got to tell you, Chris, listen, the truth of the matter is I'm happy waking up and being alive and being cancer-free. The truth is, there is no reason right now, Chris, based on what doctors have said since 2006. I mean, as you know, I've had a lot of treatment. We're talking about 300 chemo and radiation sessions over 3 times. Stage 4, stage 3, and stage 1 diagnosis. Most people don't get through a stage 4. So the truth is, it's not hard for me to actually be happy because I actually know, and I've seen it with my own eyes, the way it could have gone. Chris, I've sat with people. You can imagine sitting through treatments. I've sat through sessions where I've heard women that are in their mid-30s on a mobile phone recording their voice into voice memos saying, "Hi, sweetheart. Sorry, I wish I could be at your 18th birthday." And I hear it talk. And you basically got a curtain that's separating you, right? And you think to yourself, man, I've come here. I'm not going to sit at home and just, waste the remainder of my life, whether it's 40 years or, 40 months. I hope it's 40 years. So I know it sounds corny, but I do have an attitude of gratitude. And the reason why is that the chances of being born is 1 in 400 trillion. That's a miracle. And then the chances of being born in Australia or New Zealand, which is the world that we operate in, Chris, is even less. And then to go through all of that and then to get an illness that you look at the 5-year survival rates, I've got to tell you, I'm fucking the luckiest person I've ever fucking met in my life.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Panos.
Thank you, Chris.